Bill Hurd from Hackaday. Half a lifetime ago, I worked at a company called Commodore, who made the most successful home computer ever in the Commodore 64, which sold 27 million. This is at a time when there's 200 million people in America, and so you can imagine how many households had one of these. And one of the reasons Commodore was as good as we were at what we did was we did our own chips, including some programmable logic. And we're going to show you some here in a second. Mainly, our competitors, Apple, were using our chips, our processor that we used, designed by Chuck Peddle, Bill Mensch, and his team. And for graphics, they used off-the-shelf chips. Atari was coming to MOS Technology, who we owned, for ROMs, and so we were at the top of the pyramid making the chips. So I was in the right place at the right time, and I designed the Commodore 128 as a follow-up. This thing's huge. It's a beast. Jerry Ellsworth gave me crap about this one day. But this was possible because of programmable logic and our own chips. So this is a Commodore-made 80-column chip. This is a Commodore-made 40-column chip. There's a processor we made. There's an MMU that I had made for this. And then there's a PLA. It's in a 48-pin package, the biggest package we made and the biggest package I'd ever seen till the 68,000 Hershey bar came out. That thing was huge. We used to land airplanes on it. So this particular programmable logic was called a PLA gate. And I'd argue it was probably the earliest form of programmable logic. It had an and/or. It had an and/or array. And what that meant was, let's see if we can get it up here. What that meant was we had every term here, we could pick between a negative or a positive version of that and put them down into an AND gate for this. Now, in real life, though, we had one of these. I'm not even going to point. We had one of these for each of the outputs. And now you start to see the size of this array here. It's huge, right? So that was designed into the Commodore 64, and it was a spin-off of the chip called the 82S100, which was made by Signetics. We might have copied it at MOS. I say that because we had the room with the Polaroid camera pictures all around the edge of somebody else's PLA, and then we made our own at Commodore. Now, actually, it turned out to be the highest failing chip we had, even though, well, VIC chip was pretty bad too. So one time the PLAs were failing, and they were rotting. They were eating themselves alive. And at the time, I think I was from a group of people that just kind of assumed that the metal structure of doing these arrays that I just showed you was causing the passivation, the insulating coating they do to keep air out and everything else, got too thin at the tops. But what it turns out to have been was the boron that they put into the silicon nitride to actually give it more flow to go down into the valleys was actually attacking the aluminum. And you could see it in the microscope. You could stick one of these on there, and we called it the purple creeping crud, and you could just see it there. And so it was eating everything alive. So I pick up on this chip, and I say, cool, we can use it for the 128. I need more than twice the number of terms, because I got to do the Commodore 64 functions, plus these new ones, and we had dual processor, two graphics chips and stuff. And so we made it twice as big, right? Twice as many terms. Well, in an array where you have twice the resistance from being twice as big and twice the capacitance from being twice as big, that's 4 times the load, the RC load that gets driven. And so we got lucky, but it worked. But we were at the end of where we could go with that technology. So it's the biggest PLA that made sense to us, and it tied everything together. It's what made this possible. But now this thing's a frickin' it's a contradiction, right? I've got a PLA tying all this stuff together, but then I got these little gates all over the frickin' place, right? You'd say, Bill, why didn't you put those in a PLD? We had PLDs at the time. Let's see if I can pull one up here. This was a PLD, 16L8, 16V8, 22V10. These were the PLDs of the time. They're still an and/or array. We like to throw a flip-flop on the end and feedback. So now we have the ability for state machines. And because they're way smaller, you can do something like a DRAM controller with this. And on the PLA, you can make chip select logic, lousy DRAM controller. This thing, DRAM controller, limited, 16, 18, 20, 22 pin chip, skinny dip. And so it was limited on where it could go, but these things had another reason I couldn't use them. That is that they were $4.50, if memory serves me. And if I put 2 of them in this thing, that'd be close to $10. We sold just under 6 million, so that's $60 million I would have spent if I had used PLDs. So what we did is we gave up board space, and I probably have about $1.10 worth of jungle logic here. And actually what I had done was looked at what was in stock in Hong Kong and designed from stock. We had like 500,000 7406s in stock, that kind of thing. So this was the extent we could take the PLA. The PLA didn't yet have room in a mass production like we did. The Z8000 guys were starting to use it. And that takes us up to Cplds and Fpgas. So we're going to talk about that briefly. As we grew out of the PLAs and PLDs, I remember this early 90s, we started working with companies Xilinx. Here's a modern day Xilinx. This is an FPGA, and we're going to play with him later, not in this show. But they had all of 64 registers in them. They worked on a CGA monitor, which meant you had 4 colors to choose from, yellow, green, some other thing, CGA colors. And you had to go along and put little dots where you wanted the wires to connect. So you manually routed the inside of this thing. It was horrible. But we loved it. We could route without routing. We could fix problems after the board was made, and that's one of the hidden beauties of programmable logic. So, and then we grew into, rapidly I think, suddenly the Xilinx and Altera both have software we can use to program the chips using, at the time I used AHDL, Altera high-level design language. You could still use schematics. And we got into Cplds, complex programmable logic devices. They're PLDs on steroids. And what you can do is have an array that's huge, right? And because they're in chips, 144 pins in this case for a Cpld. So, and now this is one that, let's see if you can see it there. We're going to actually light this up and program it here. This is one I designed that is meant to fit on top of a Arduino Mega. And it's got some 8 nanosecond static RAM as close by it, what we call tightly coupled. And we're going to make some LEDs blink. So I'm going to actually show you some Verilog code, make a counter, and make these LEDs light. We're going to try and do that in about 8 minutes here. So, because I want you to see all the way through from beginning to end, you can use these parts. Hardest part, soldering the 144 pin to the board, and that's fun, right? So I'm going to bring this video to a close and say that wraps up our summary of PLAs and PALs. And in the very next video, I'm going to show you how to program a Cpld from scratch. So Bill Hurd from Hackaday, and if you're hankering a hacker, why not? Go for it.